I'm Bridget.
And I'm Jacob, and we're going to talk to you about Water for Elephants and why the book is better than the film version.
The novel provides the audience with a better overall message and better historical content than the film version of Water for Elephants.
This is the case because the book is able to elaborate, allowing for better character development and deeper meaning, while the movie is limited by time constraints, hindering its ability to allow for deeper thinking to take place.
The novel provides the audience with a much deeper message to them to digest, as opposed to the movie, which offers a more shallow and commercial message.
The message the novel sends is, to me, what it feels like a metaphor for what America went through during the Depression. The metaphor being where Jacob would be the young nation of America, and then they hit some hard times, and as the hard times continue, they become corrupted. Some examples of that in the book would be how when Jacob joins the circus, shortly after he develops a relationship with Barbara, the prostitute, well, burlesque dancer. So you can see the normal Jacob before the Depression and before his whole entire life fell apart. He probably wouldn't have gotten with a prostitute, and even people can argue that she purposely took his innocence, and that's kind of a metaphor because the Depression definitely took America's innocence and definitely changed who we were as a nation and put us in a situation we hadn't been in before. So we kind of just went with it as opposed to doing the right thing and the thing that our morals would have had us do before that. And then also, um, another example of that, of the loss of innocence by Jacob, that is equivalent to that of America, would be when Marlena, who is a much older woman than Jacob, well, not a lot, but relatively older than Jacob, she also develops a relationship with him, which could be seen as inappropriate. And normally, Jacob probably wouldn't have gotten with a married woman, but due to the situation that he was put in, being in the circus, not knowing where he was, what was going on, what he was even going to do with his life, he acted on that, and yeah, he almost got himself killed a couple times. And that's kind of how America during the Depression almost ended, because we had no money and we would have been really in a bad situation, and then were put there due to changed circumstances and our loss of innocence.
Unfortunately, the movie takes the deep intellectual message of the book and turns it into a generic Hollywood love story. The movie it makes Marlena into a damsel in distress and makes August into the dragon that is taking her from the world, and makes Jacob the knight in shining armor, and turns the entire story into this Hollywood love story that the book really isn't about. And the book more focuses on
the deep messages.
Yeah, deep messages.
While the movie focuses on the generic, oh my gosh, I love you, and I'm gonna save you because you're in danger, kind of thing that's really over prevalent in Hollywood today, and it sells a lot of tickets, doesn't it, Bridget?
Yeah, it sells a lot, but it's not nearly as deep and emotional as the book was and the message in the book. Our next point is that the novel is very historically accurate and sets the scene for the Depression well, but the movie strays from the historical context of the book and focuses instead on the love story between Jacob and Marlena.
Any historical buff would love this book. It teaches about the Depression in the 1930s. The book really does a great job of offering imagery of what life was like in Depression era America, and it showed the struggles of carnies specifically, but also it just set the scene for what's the dire straits that America was in at the time, and it just really gave you a good idea through imagery and descriptive language that America was in a really bad spot, and that it wasn't a good place to be in because they were just so poor. Everything they built up leading up to that was pretty much gone because nobody had money anymore. It was just a really bad situation, and the book really did a great job of illustrating that.
And the book shows how everyone is affected, and not just like certain people, or
Yeah,
just the circus. It's
not just poor carnies, but just people like everybody, even normal citizens that weren't carnies, were affected by it.
The director obviously commercialized this movie and took out almost all evidence that it even took place during the Depression or a time of economic struggle at all. Like examples of this were like people were going to the circus dressed in nice clothes. There was a lot of people going to the circus still, even though it was expensive and people didn't have money during this time. And the workers, as described in the book, are really dirty, and you can tell that they're poor by looking at them. But in the movie, they don't look that dirty. They just kind of look like workers.
Yeah. And like in the book, they kind of illustrated how the circus was struggling, and even though it was kind of hinted at the circus was struggling in the movie, it wasn't as prevalent as it was in the book, and so you can kind of see that the director kind of took the book and just completely made it into something that the author didn't intend for it to be because he didn't really address the financial like dire straits that everybody was in at the time, and like even when they ran away from the circus and they went to the hotel and they were like broke circus performers and stuff, their room really didn't look that bad. I mean, sure, the door must have been kind of cheap because it got kicked in one kick, but I mean, it didn't really look that awful.
And it seems like the director just kind of picked at and took out parts that he didn't think were needed just to form his love story, and all of those seemed to be parts of the Depression. So basically everything that had to do with depression was taken out except for like little things that you can still tell ish that they are economically struggling, but not really.
Yeah.
In conclusion, due to time constraints and the message the director of the film was attempting to send, the movie was unable to live up to the standards set by the novel. The novel requires thinking and makes the reader draw their own conclusions, whereas the movie does all the thinking for you. It doesn't have a deep message.
The movie also lacks in historical content and gives the illusion that the story could have easily taken place in another time period. Where in the novel, the time period is used to frame the plot effortlessly.
So don't just rent the movie, read the book.
Not only will you be reading a book that is historically accurate and gives you a deeper message, you won't be watching just another love story.